Kubernetes interview questions and answers, intermediate level. What is the difference between config map and secret? Differentiate the answers as with examples. Config maps ideally stores application configuration in a plain text format, whereas secrets store sensitive data like password in an encrypted format. Both config maps and secrets can be used as volume and mounted inside a pod through a pod definition file. If a node is tainted, is there a way to still schedule the pods to that node? When a node is tainted, the pods don't get scheduled by default. However, if we have to still schedule a pod to a tainted node, we can start applying tolerations to the pod spec. Can we use many claims out of a persistent volume? Explain. The mapping between persistent volume and persistent volume claim is always 1-to-1. Even when you delete the claim, persistent volume still remains, as we set persistent volume reclaim policy is set to retain, and it will not be reused by any other claims. Example spec given here to create the persistent volume. What kind of object do you create when your dashboard-like application queries the Kubernetes API to get some data? You should be creating service account. A service account creates a token, and tokens are stored inside a secret object. By default, Kubernetes automatically mounts the default service account. However, we can disable this property by setting automount service account token false in our spec. Also, note each namespace will have a service account. What is the difference between a pod and a job? Differentiate the answers as with examples. A pod always ensures that a container is running, whereas the job ensures that the pods run to its completion. Job is to do a finite task. Examples given. How do you deploy a feature with zero downtime in Kubernetes? By default, deployment in Kubernetes using rolling update as a strategy. Let's say we have an example mentioned here that creates a deployment in Kubernetes. Just go through it. How to monitor that a pod is always running? We can introduce probes. A liveness probe with a pod is ideal in the scenario. A liveness probe always checks if an application in a pod is running. If this check fails, the container gets restarted. This is ideal in many scenarios where the container is running but somehow the application inside a container crashes. Just go through the example given here. What are the types of multi-container pod patterns? Explain each type with examples. Sidecar. A pod spec which runs the main container and a helper container that does some utility work, but that is not necessarily needed for the main container to work. Adapter. The adapter container will inspect the contents of the apps file, does some kind of restructuring and reformat it, and write the correctly formatted output to the location. Ambassador. It connects containers with the outside world. It is a proxy that allows other containers to connect to a port on localhost. What is the difference between replication controllers and replica sets? The only difference between replication controllers and replica sets is the selectors. Replication controllers don't have selectors in their spec, and also note that replication controllers are obsolete now in the latest version of Kubernetes. How do you tie service to a pod or to a set of pods? By declaring pods with the labels and by having a selector in the service which acts as a glue to stick the service to the pods. As per the example given, let's say if we have a set of pods that carry a label app equal to my app, the service will start routing to those pods. Having a pod with two containers, can I ping each other, like using the container name? Containers on same pod act as if they are on the same machine. You can ping them using localhost, port itself. Every container in a pod shares the same IP. You can ping localhost inside a pod. Two containers in the same pod share an IP and a network namespace, and they are both localhost to each other. Discovery works like this: component A pods, then service of component B, then component B pods, and services have domain names: servicename.namespace.svc, cluster.local. The DNS search path of pods by default includes that stuff, so a pod in namespace foo can find a service bar in same namespace, foo, by connecting to bar. Does the rolling update with stateful set replicas is equal to 1 makes sense? No, because there is only one replica. Any changes to stateful set would result in an outage. So rolling update of a stateful set would need to tear down one or more old pods before replacing them. In case to replicas, a rolling update will create the second pod, which it will not be succeeded. The PD is locked by first old running pod. The rolling update is not deleting the first pod in time to release the lock on the P disk in time for the second pod to use it. If there is only one, that rolling update goes 1, 0, 1. If the app can run with multiple identical instances concurrently, use a deployment and roll 1, 2, 1 instead. Different ways to provide API security on Kubernetes. Use the correct auth mode with API server authorization mode is equal to node. RBAC ensure all traffic is protected by TLS. Use API authentication. Smaller cluster may use certificates, but larger multi-tenants may want an AD or some OIDC authentication. Make kubeless protect its API via authorization mode is equal to webhook. Make sure the kube dashboard uses a restrictive RBAC role policy. Monitor RBAC failures, remove default service account permissions, filter egress to cloud API metadata, IPIs. Filter out all traffic coming into kube system namespace except DNS. A default deny policy on all inbound on all namespaces is good practice. You explicitly allow per deployment. Use a pod security policy to have container restrictions and protect the node. Keep kube at the latest version. What does kubeproxy do? Kubeproxy does two things. For every service, open a random port on the node and proxy that port to the service. Install and maintain iptables rules which capture accesses to a virtual IP port and redirect those to the port in. The kubeproxy is a component that manages host subnetting and makes services available to other components. Kubeproxy handles network communication and shutting down. Master does not stop a node from serving the traffic, and kubeproxy works in the same way, using a service. The IP tables will route the connection to kubeproxy, which will then proxy to one of the pods in the service. Kubeproxy translate the destination address to whatever is in the endpoints. What runs inside the Kubernetes worker nodes? Container runtime. Kubelet. Kubeproxy. Kubernetes worker node is a machine where workloads get deployed. The workloads are in the form of containerized applications, and because of that, every node in the cluster must run the container runtime such as Docker in order to run those workloads. You can have multiple masters mapped to multiple worker nodes or a single master having a single worker node. Also, the worker nodes are not gossiping or doing leader election or anything that would lead to odd quantities. The role of the container runtime is to start and manage containers. The kubelet is responsible for running the state of each node, and it receives commands and works to do from the master. It also does the health check of the nodes and makes sure they are healthy. Kubelet is also responsible for metric collectance of pods as well. The kubeproxy is a component that manages host subnetting and makes services available to other components. Is there a way to make a pod to automatically come up when the host restarts? Yes, using replication controller, but it may reschedule to another host if you have multiple nodes in the cluster. A replication controller is a supervisor for long-running pods. An RC will launch a specified number of pods called replicas and makes sure that they keep running. Replication controller only supports the simple map style, label, value, selectors. Also, replication controller and replica set aren't very different. You could think of replica set as replication controller. The only thing that is different today is the selector format. If pods are managed by a replication controller or replication set, you can kill the pods and they'll be restarted automatically. The example YAML definition given here. Is there any other way to update config map for deployment without pod restarts? Well, you need to have some way of triggering the reload. Either do a check every minute or have a reload endpoint for an API or project. The config map, as a volume, could use inotify to be aware of the change. Depends on how the config map is consumed by the container. If env vars, then number. If a volume mount, then the file is updated in the container ready to be consumed by the service, but it needs to reload the file. The container does not restart. If the config map is mounted as a volume, it is updated dynamically. If it is an environment variable, it stays as the old value until the container is restarted. Volume mount the config map into the pod. The projected file is updated periodically, not real-time. Then have the app recognize if the config on disk has changed and reload. Do rolling updates declared with a deployment take effect if I manually delete pods of the replica set with kubectl delete pods or with a dashboard? Will the minimum required a number of pods be maintained? Yes, the scheduler will make sure, as long as you have the correct resources, that the number of desired pods are met. If you delete a pod, it will recreate it. Also, deleting a service won't delete the replica set. If you remove service or deployment, you want to remove all resources which service created. Also, having a single replica for a deployment is usually not recommended because you cannot scale out and are treating in a specific way. Any app should be ingress, service, deployment, volume mount, or third-party cloud storage. You can skip ingress and just have load balancer, service, deployment, or pod, but they don't auto-restart. Deployments do. What is the difference between external IP and load balancer IP? Load balancer IP is not a core Kubernetes concept. You need to have a cloud provider or controller like Metal LB set up the load balancer IP. When Metal LB sees a service of type is equal to load balancer, with a cluster IP created, Metal LB allocates an IP from its pool and assigns it as that service's external load balanced IP. The external IP, on the other hand, is set up by Kubelet so that any traffic that is sent to any node with that external IP as the final destination will get routed. External IP assumes you already have control over said IP, and that you have correctly arranged for traffic to that IP to eventually land at one or more of your cluster nodes, and it is a tool for implementing your own load balancing. Also, you shouldn't use it on cloud platforms like GK. You want to set spec load balancer IP to the IP you pre-allocated. When you try to create the service using load balancer IP instead of external IP, it doesn't create the ephemeral port, and the external IP address goes to pending and never updates. In Kubernetes, a pod is running to containers. When one container stops, another container is still running. On this event, I want to terminate this pod. You need to add a liveness and readiness probe to query each container. If the probe fails, the entire pod will be restarted. Add liveness object that calls any API that returns 200 to you from another container, and both liveness and readiness probes run in infinite loops. For example, if X depended to Y, so add liveness in X that check the health of Y. Both readiness liveness probes always have to run after the container has been started. Kubelet component performs the liveness readiness checks and set initial milliseconds, and it can be anything from a few seconds to a few minutes depending on app start time. Example configuration spec given here. What is the ingress? Is it something that runs as a pod or on a pod? An ingress is an object that holds a set of rules for an ingress controller, which is essentially a reverse proxy and is used to, in the case of Nginx ingress for example, render a configuration file. It allows access to your Kubernetes services from outside the Kubernetes cluster. It holds a set of rules. An ingress controller is a controller, typically deployed as a Kubernetes deployment. That deployment runs a reverse proxy, the ingress part, and a reconciler, the controller part. The reconciler configures the reverse proxy according to the rules in the ingress object. Ingress controllers watch the Kubernetes API and update their config on changes. The rules help to pass to a controller that is listening for them. You can deploy a bunch of ingress rules, but nothing will happen unless you have a controller that can process them. Load balancer service, ingress controller pods, app service, via ingress, app pods. What happens if daemon set can be set to listen on a specific interface, since the Anycast IP will be assigned to a network interface alias? Yes, host network for the daemon set gets you to the host, so an interface with an Anycast IP should work. You'll have to proxy the data through the daemon set. Daemon set allows you to run the pod on the host network, so Anycast is possible. Daemon set allows us to run the pod on the host network. At the risk of being pedantic, any pod can be specified to run on the host network. The only thing special about daemon set is you get one pod per host. Most of the issues with respect to IP space is solved by daemon sets. As kubeproxy is run as daemon set, the node has to be ready for the kubeproxy daemon set to be up. How to forward port 8080, container 8080, service 8080, ingress 80, browser, how is it done? The ingress is exposing port 80 externally for the browser to access and connecting to a service that listens on 8080. The ingress will listen on port 80 by default. An ingress controller is a pod that receives external traffic and handles the ingress and is configured by an ingress resource. For this you need to configure ingress selector, and if no ingress controller selector is specified, then no ingress controller will control the ingress. Simple ingress config given here. Are deployments with more than one replica automatically doing rolling updates when a new deployment config is applied? The deployment updates pods in a rolling update fashion when spec strategy type is equal to rolling update. You can specify max unavailable and max surge to control the rolling update process. Rolling update is the default deployment strategy. kubectl rolling update updates pods and replication controllers in a similar fashion. But deployments are recommended since they are declarative and have additional features such as rolling back to any previous revision even after the rolling update is done. So for rolling updates to work as one may expect, a readiness probe is essential. Redeploying deployments is easy, but rolling updates will do it nicely for me without any downtime. The way to make a rolling update of a deployment and kubectl apply on it is as given here. If you have multiple containers in a deployment file, does use the horizontal pod autoscaler scale all of the containers? Yes, it would scale all of them. Internally the deployment creates a replica set, which does the scaling, and then a set number of pods are made by that replica set. The pod is what actually holds both of those containers. And if you want to scale them independently, they should be separate pods, and therefore replica sets, deployments, etc. So for HPA to work, you need to specify min and max replicas, and the threshold what percentage of CPU and memory you want your pods to autoscale. Without having the manually run kubectl autoscale deployment, you can use the given YAML file here to do the same. Suppose you have to use database with your application, but if you make a database container-based deployment, how would the data persist? Deployments are for stateless services. You want to use a stateful set or just define 3+ pods without a replication controller at all. If you care about stable pod names and volumes, you should go for stateful set. Using stateful sets, you can maintain which pod is attached to which disk. Stateful sets make vanilla Kubernetes capable of keeping pod state, things like IPs, etc., which makes it easy to run clustered databases. A stateful set is a controller that orchestrates pods for the desired state. Stateful sets, formerly known as pet sets, will help for the database if hosting your own. Essentially, stateful set is for dealing with applications that inherently don't care about what node they run on, but need unique storage state. If a pod exceeds its memory limit, what signal is sent to the process? Signal kill as immediately terminates the container and spawns a new one with OOM error. The OS, if using a cgroup-based containerization, Docker, RKT, etc., will do the OOM killing. Kubernetes simply sets the cgroup limits, but is not ultimately responsible for killing the processes. Signalturn is sent to PID 1, and Kubernetes waits for default of 30 seconds, termination grace period seconds before sending the signal kill, or you can change that time with termination grace period seconds in the pod. As long as your container will eventually exit, it should be fine to have a long grace period. If you want a graceful restart, it would have to do it inside the pod. If you don't want it killed, then you shouldn't set a memory limit on the pod, and there is not a way to disable it for the whole node. Also, when the liveness probe fails, the container will signal turn and signal kill after some grace period. If you find this video is helpful, please hit like button and share with your friends. For more interesting learning videos, make sure you have subscribed to our YouTube channel.